Good morning, everyone. Welcome to COVID 2020 webinar organized by Casper. Today, we are having with us Ms. Ankita Garg and Ms. Saheli Bose as our panel members and our presenters Charul Burma and Shakti Shri. So, please, Charul and Shakti Shri, you have to introduce yourselves and your topic.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank Casper India for giving us the opportunity to present a paper. I am Charul and my partner is Shakti Shri, and we will be presenting our paper titled Economic and Social Costs of COVID-19 and Some Remedies. The intention of this paper is to describe the social and economic impact on the economy due to the coronavirus pandemic, though we do not have much estimates about the loss that social costs can incur. One thing is certain that the social cleavages that are already existing in India will expand and widen the disparities in the country. This also depicts that the pandemic has exposed India's systemic failure and calls for a structural solution. The paper further the paper further mentions some remedies that will enable a quick recovery of the economy. Now Shakti Shri will talk about the economic costs.
Economic costs of the pandemic have been widely discussed. I have 5 points that I would wish to talk about today, starting with the downward revision of GDP estimates. On the 30th of May, the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation brought out its GDP estimate for the fourth quarter of the year 2019 to 20, which was much lower than the corresponding quarter's growth in the year 2018 to 19. It was just 3.1%. Even though out of the 94 days in the fourth quarter, only 7 days were under lockdown, the GDP estimate is really low, which gives us a glimpse into what would happen throughout the rest of the coming year. The Reserve Bank of India has also given its official acceptance that the GDP growth rate will slip into negative territory this year. One estimate that we obtained was SBI research report EcoRap, which says that the GDP estimate for the fiscal year 2020-21 will be minus 6.8%. There are other estimates which also predict that the GDP rate growth rate will be negative, at least for the first 3 quarters of the year. What is also being said is that the 3 worst hit states are Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Tamil Nadu, which also contribute a lot to the GDP. So the maximum loss to the GDP would be coming from these 3 states. The next point after GDP is supply side. The supply side has been heavily affected because of the lockdown, because our lockdown is also considered one of the strictest in the world, and because of this, production has been severely hit. We have the PMI for the month of April for both the services sector and the manufacturing sector. The PMI for the services sector has fallen to a low of 5.4 in April from 49.3 in March, and the manufacturing sector PMI has also dropped to 27.4 in April from 51.8 in March. A PMI above 50 means the sector is expanding, and the one below 50 means it's shrinking. So we see that the PMI of both the sectors are well below 50. And even though we do not have RBI's capacity utilization survey for the months following the lockdown, it was quite low even before the pandemic at 68.9%. Just to give a glimpse at what the capacity utilization is like after the pandemic set in, we have Britannia Industries, which reported that it is operating only at 65% of capacity, and the pharmaceutical industry has reported a capacity utilization of as low as 50%. Now, these two sectors, namely FMCG and pharmaceutical sector, are considered, because they fall in the essential goods category, we thought it would be the least affected, and they themselves are operating well below full capacity. So other industries and other sectors would also be heavily affected because of this. Now, the third point is demand and consumer sentiments. No doubt that demand side has taken a big toll. Private consumption has taken a plunge in mostly non-essential items because mobility is restricted. People are not purchasing goods unnecessarily, and also people's income expectations have fallen with many out of employment, which has caused a huge fall in aggregate demand in the economy. The current situation index released by the RBI for the fourth quarter of the FY20, because this is the latest that we can get, even though the lockdown started only in late March, the CSI shows that the sentiment is marginally better, but it is almost equal to the record low that was observed in the third quarter, which is in December 2019. And household spending sentiments have actually deteriorated. And the future expectations index released by the RBI, they show more or less the same in March compared to January. Because we do not have the latest data, from the RBI, we looked upon data from McKinsey Inc. They did a survey in the month of May, and what they found out was 56% of their respondents faced a negative impact on their incomes since the beginning of the lockdown, and 68% of respondents reduced spending. 54% of respondents said that they cut back on spending that they would have otherwise done if not for the pandemic. Now the next is employment, which logically follows from demand, because the reason for fall in demand is employment uncertainty. Now the CMIE has given us an unemployment rate of 27.1%, which is a record high in the first week of May. On May 3rd, they released that it was 27.1%. Now, even within this, there is a disparity between urban areas and rural areas. In urban areas, it is 29.22%, and in rural areas, it's 26.69%. Another interesting, a rather dismal dimension to this is that the CMI's Consumer Pyramid Household Survey has reported that job losses are more among the younger cohort, the ones who have just joined the labor market, that is. So they said that even though 44% of those employed in 2019 were under 40, 52% of the job losses were also among those who were under 40 years of age. This is a very bad, since people who are just entering the labor market are the ones being also removed from jobs right now due to the lockdown and pandemic. Another disturbing aspect is that 90%, almost 90% of India's labor force is employed in the informal sector in urban areas, and these are also the areas which is more susceptible to be restricted by the lockdown. Pranab Sen, who is a renowned statistician, has informed that 50 million informal sector workers would be out of jobs in the first 2 weeks of lockdown itself. And the International Labour Organization has estimated that 400 million workers in the informal sector will be impacted. The last point is of trade. Now, as expected, there is a fall in both exports and imports. The exports have fallen by over 60% between April 2019 and April 2020. There are only two sectors, which is iron ore and pharmaceuticals, which have registered a positive growth in exports. The other sectors, namely gems and jewelry, leather, petroleum, engineering goods, and chemicals, have all recorded a negative growth in exports. Imports have also fallen by 58.65%. Because both exports and imports have fallen, and also due to the fall in oil prices, our deficit has actually improved. In the merchandise trade deficit for April 2020 was $6.76 billion as against $15.33 billion in April. And taking merchandise and services together, we actually have a trade surplus of $0.16 billion as compared to the earlier deficit of $8.6 billion. Now, so these are all the economic costs that have been estimated, and we are receiving numbers but these are widely discussed and debated as well. But what is more important are the social costs and social implications of this pandemic, which are we do not have ready numbers to quantify these, but these also have long-reaching effects and long-term impacts. So Charul will now talk about the social costs of the pandemic.
So one of the very important social causes that I want to talk about is that the unequal effect on one gender. So I would like to start by giving some background information about the condition of women in the country before the pandemic started, with 70% of women labor associated to the unorganized sector. They are one of the most vulnerable sections of the workers. They earn less, have insecure jobs, and are excessively exploited. As according to the one of the reports by Jayati Ghosh in the early months of January, she has pointed out that the labor force participation rate for rural and urban women is converging. Share of the urban women in regular, I'm sorry, I'm receiving a call. Uh, is it this call is from Activities One itself?
No, no, you can continue. You can continue. That was just.
Okay. So another thing is that the share of women in regular employment has fallen from 10.14% to 9.48%, and that of rural women has marginally increased. It is evident that the area of women labor has been in peril for some time, and researchers around the world believe that the effects of the pandemic will roll back the few fragile improvements that were made before it started. So another thing that I want to talk about is the health staff. So globally, the frontline workers, like the healthcare personnel, involve 70% of women, including nurses, midwives, and community health workers, which make them extremely susceptible to the virus. Data from countries like Spain and Italy show that the female health workers have 72% and 66% chances of getting infected than men. Apart from this, the safety gear for women does not consider the inconvenience they go through when they are menstruating, shedding light towards the fact that the attention is lesser on one gender. Now, another impact is on work for women. So I'd like to discuss about the unpaid care work first. Before the pandemic also, women's contribution to unpaid work and domestic care was 3 times more than that of men. Another study reports that women spend up to 14 hours at work. And now while they are at home, this there has been a more reinforcement of attitudes and practices that regard women as second-class citizens and hold them back. Now, this shows that the unpaid care work will restrict women and reduce their efficiency. Also, the orthodox roles of gender in our society compel women to prioritize their domestic work and care for the elderly and the kids. And this only not only reduces their work towards their time towards their work, but also causes exhaustion, leading to difficulty in achieving efficiency. Now, another report by Guardian says that the research articles by women have subsided and that has increased for men. So this shows that, again shows that women researchers are not able to concentrate on their work. They are professors, so they mostly value their time solving the students' doubts and ensuring their kids' education rather than spending it on research, which of course, involves a lot of substantial time. Now, another cost for worry is the labor cost. We are already aware about the gender wage gap that exists in all occupations in the country. As one of the most vulnerable section of the working class, there is a possibility that this wage gap will amplify. Due to the urgent requirement of the labor, their labor will be bought at lesser value by the employees, leading to their exploitation. This may also discourage them from withdrawing and lead them to withdraw from the labor force altogether, causing a dent in the economy. Also, they may also be subjected to domestic violence at home because their bargaining power is being lost. Now, can we go back to the slide? Okay, so another impact is on the education for girls. According to the Plan International Organization, for boys, it is 1.5 times more likely that they hold a cell phone, as well as in lower and middle income countries, it is likely that 1.8 times boys have internet access more than girls. So, with this information also, and also that in this lockdown, the responsibilities of girl child will increase, taking care of their siblings and attending to the domestic chores. Their concentration on studying and as well as their studying hours will reduce very significantly. This is the gendered impact on. This is the gender impact of coronavirus. Next, we have the extensive effects on mental health. It is essential that we do not forget about the mental health of the people. Also, in the current draft of Renewed Global Action Plan 2020 and 30, WHO has added a specific objective concerning mental health in humanitarian emergencies, and they also want to place mental health at in national emergency committees. So, of course, mental health is seemingly very important. Now, the impact on children's mental health is that because children have nowhere else to go, they may be exposed to their dysfunctional family relationships, their abusive parents, and a lack of privacy. This will definitely take a toll on their mental health. Another is that children from lower income families may have this fear and develop an anxiety because of the disruption of their education. They may get the fear that they won't get white collar jobs, which they have been working hard for. Another another effect is on the uh, health staff, uh, the frontline workers, the doctors, and the police. They are also exposed to this scary situation, which may be traumatic for some, taking a toll on their mental health. Now, they have long working hours, loneliness, physical fatigue, separation from family, exposure to the virus, and shortage of protective equipment. These can definitely take a toll on their mental health. For instance, we have an example that a nurse committed suicide in Ahmedabad recently, and it makes it evident that mental health is an important aspect of this pandemic. Now, another cohort of population who are sitting at home may develop anxiety. As Shakti Shri talked about, there is a concern that there can be mass layoffs, speculation about the global recession, and prolonged period of unemployment. This may widen the income disparities and can give anxiety. And the WHO report says that depression and anxiety have an estimated cost to the global economy of $1 trillion per year. So this definitely is an important aspect of coronavirus. Lastly, I want to talk about the othering phenomena. It means that it is based on many expressions of prejudices of group identities. So the labeling and othering will elevate the already existing disparities. The hatred towards one group completely drops the possibility of inclusivity in the society, leading to segregation of groups. For instance, uh, one of the examples that came in the news was that in one of the housing societies of Gurgaon have forbidden the domestic help to use the lift, as it will endanger the people that are already living there, as it will infect the area. Another example is of an advertisement of Atta Maker that is encouraging the audience to buy the Atta Maker, their product, and not take the help of the domestic help because she may be infected. These all leads definitely it affects their employment. Secondly, it segregates them from the population. Another thing is that this process of othering is deeply contextual. Uh, as these group-based identities are not just central to the religion and ethnicity alone, it may be an overlap of multiple identities with specific culture and geographical and political histories, which may be rekindled in these times. Now, another factor is that the institutionalization feature of othering. It explains the marginalization and the inequalities that exist when this othering phenomena take place. The only sustainable solution that is there is that a call for belonging and inclusion in the society. These are some of the social causes that I have covered. Now, Shakti Shri will talk about the revival measures.
Uh, in order to revive the economy, the government had announced a 20 lakh crore fiscal stimulus. Now, it seems like a huge amount, but the estimated fiscal impact of the package that has been announced has only been around 2.4 lakh crores. This is because most of the proposals in the package have been focused on credit and liquidity, which are called below the line measures. But what we really need is above the line measures, which will have a fiscal impact in the economy. This estimate of fiscal impact has been done by SBI Research, and they've given a range of 1.65 lakh crores to 2.4 lakh crores. Now, we need more than this because banks are flush with liquidity, but borrowers are the ones who are not willing to borrow. To come out of this low demand, low investment trap, we need more a larger fiscal push, because only credit measures and liquidity measures will not help. Now, this brings us to the question of whether a huge fiscal stimulus will create a deficit. And the major point which has been argued against deficits is that it will lead to a rise in the interest rate, which will crowd out private investment. But then there is evidence that there is a complementarity between improvement of physical infrastructure, which will happen because of public investment and public expenditure, and private investment. So there's a complementarity.
Excuse me, Charul and Shaktishree, it's a reminder that you are having 20, you will be given 20 minutes for presenting the paper and 10 minutes will be giving to the panel to ask the questions. So can you speed up or?
Yes, we'll just wind up. So,
Okay.
And a lot of economists like Paul Krugman have said that in a time like this, a sustained deficit is fine because we need to kickstart the economy, which will only happen from the demand side. And the FRBM Act, which restricts the fiscal deficit to 3% of the GDP, has to be, it has an escape clause. So we can invoke the escape clause because we are going through extraordinary times, and we can default on the FRBM Act. And what are the immediate needs that we have is that we need to improve social safety nets of people, and this can be done through advanced pension payments, etc. And NREGA is a very good database in which you can target your cash transfers and also use it to boost employment in rural areas. Now, the government in its 20 lakh crore fiscal package, it has increased its allocation to NREGA by 40,000 crores, but a lot of economists like Jean Drèze and Ritika Khera have noted that this is insufficient, and the wage increase that they've proposed of 202 rupees is also said to be inefficient, because a state like Odisha has increased its NREGA wages by much larger amount, especially for vulnerable districts. And another way to revamp or better the NREGA functioning is to pay workers immediately in cash, because workers, only if they have cash in hand will they demand goods. So that is how the economy will kickstart. So we need to pay workers immediately in cash, increase work schemes, and also increase the number of guaranteed number of work days. This is for rural employment, but urban employment is actually far more worse hit. And as we saw the unemployment numbers, so especially the informal sector and the gig economy. So we need job guarantees even in the urban sector. Self-targeting schemes would help, because targeting in India is really difficult, provided we do not have data on every person. So self-targeting schemes would be helpful. And also we need a lot of investment in health, education and digital infrastructure, which was mentioned by Charul also in the social cost, the need for this. And the last point is we need to empower state governments, because the finance minister has increased the limit of states borrowing from 3% to 5%, which is a welcome move, and states have to be given more autonomy to finance. Now, these are some revival ways on that Charul will continue talking about.
So one of the ways is increasing the representation of women in governance areas. It will increase, it will help in better designing the safety gear that I talked about, especially in the health governance. Also, when there is more participation and representation of women in governing areas, there'll be a generation of gender data, which will segregate the data by age, sex, and disability, and it will help us to initiate reforms that are specific to the requirements. Another important is the minimum wage and social security. It is imperative that we give all the workers minimum wage and social securities, as well as the labor laws that are being removed, it is essential that we do not remove them and guarantee them minimum wage, because these labor laws of tier 1 don't actually affect the productivity, and they rather they increase the incentive to work. Now, because there is a reduction in the healthcare staff, the burden on ASHA workers has been shifted, and they are because they do not even have fixed salary. They work on they work from given task to given task, and uh, we want them to get proper aid, and if they get infected, as well as incentives and perks. Now, creating behavioral health competency of primary healthcare workers is important, because they're directly connected to the patients of coronavirus who are quarantined. So this will give them support and mental health care. Now, help from community groups is an important revival way that, as Shakti talked about, the local governance and the community groups should be given importance, and the training of community personnel should be done, so that there are the ground level people. This measure can help the ground level people. Now, secondly, the universal counseling sessions is important for everyone, even the lower middle income families, because it will help them to culturally sensitize them. It will also reduce the occurrence of othering that happens sometimes. Now, we'll go back. Another important step is towards the education. Now, online learning is being told as the future of education, but of course, there is this problem that in India, according to the NSS survey 2017 and 18, less than 15% of rural Indian households have internet connections, and a mere 13% people who are above the age of 5 in rural areas, and just 8.5% of women know how to access internet. So one of the important solutions that we have is the IVR schemes, the interactive voice response, as well as SMS and radio, that is being used by the Startup Think Zone in Odisha, as well as if the schools maintain a proper database of parents and guardians, it will help to maintain a contact from the teachers to the students, and the parents of the students, so that this contact is not lost in this time of coronavirus. Now, another important revival measure that we want to talk about is the innovation.
Charul, excuse me,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt. We are about to finish this session actually. So if Saheli ma'am is having any question.
Yeah, sure.
I don't have any specific question as such, because you have covered a lot of thing in your presentation, and you have spent considerable time describing what has already been published. So when you're writing a paper, you must have focus on one particular issue to which you are addressing. Like you could have focused on social costs that the lockdown is imposing on women, and substantiate your claims with some data using NSS surveys and other surveys also. So I think that you're talking about a lot of things, and you're stating a lot of things without providing facts to support your statements. So that is a lacuna. And if you would have focused on particularly work on women, or how their employment is affected and associated with it, how the mental health is affected, it could have been a very nice presentation. That is what I thought while hearing your presentation, because you're trying to cover many things in 20 minutes. It doesn't do justice to something which is important, and you talked about it in your presentation as well. So I think that would have been better. So like, pick one area and focus.
Okay, sure.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Saheli ma'am, for your inputs. And okay, so Charul and Sakshi will be winding up now.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you, and we had a great event.
Thank you.
Thank you.